Hello everybody, Ben here from Casa Animalia. I thought we'd do a bit of an update today on the Green Iguana. So first point, as you can see, we are back indoors. The reason I wanted to do this update with him was because I thought it might be interesting for some other sort of reptile keepers who are new to the hobby to learn that an upgrade in enclosure isn't always the best thing for the animal. So, of course, in my mind, I'm putting him outdoors. One, he's getting more sun. Two, he's got a bigger space that he can move around, climb, exercise, and use his muscles. However, though the first sort of few weeks seem to be going really well, certainly the first 2 weeks, he was out a lot. As you can see in here, there's no hide box, so it was a new thing for him in his new cage, but he adapted to that really well. I did do a brief thing on my Instagram where I went out checking temperatures. First night, fine. Second, third night, I wasn't 100% happy with the temperatures. He would have been fine, but decided to install a small heat mat at that point. And then basically, as the next couple of weeks progressed, we saw him less and less active, to the point where he was only coming out to eat. And in all honesty, the last couple of days before I actually took him out, because I was still indecisive, I really wanted him outdoors, but he's got a good appetite, this fella. And so when I had to feed him inside his box, I decided I just wasn't happy. Now, there's a couple of things that could be the cause for this, from spending so long in his hide box. The first thing is, obviously, it was a more open cage. If you've seen the previous video or the couple of videos back, you'll have seen the cage that I had set up for him. He did live outside for 3 weeks. He escaped, and he was running up and down the entire garden. That was last year. And it took me 3 weeks to catch him. So I think one element could be the openness of the cage. So there is a big plant growing up the back, and he's got some growth of stuff on the ground and stuff like that. So I think that, combined with potentially the dogs that are in the garden. Now, I was down there a few times and I saw him interact with the dogs. He didn't seem particularly bothered by them, but you don't know. As he's settling in, maybe they were bothering him a little bit. I think the cage thing is more important. And also, I think the last thing, I think he missed the being looked after. I think he missed being in here, to be totally honest with you. I know I missed him. As soon as I put him out, it was like, oh, where's my dude gone? And it meant walking down into the garden, this, that and the other. No big deal, but it's not the same. In the evening, you know, me and Liz will spend a lot of time up here. We'll watch something once we've got the kids down. And he's there with us, and I wake up in the morning, I feed him, and I come in here and have my cup of tea, and I'll watch him, and we'll, you know, there's interaction there. And I think after his escape, and he's readjusting to being in this cage, obviously he was a lot smaller when I caught him and put him in here. But yeah, I think he actually missed sort of being looked after and missed the interaction. And the minute I brought him back indoors, which I really didn't want to do, he turned around like that again. And we're already building trust much better. We were getting it the first couple of weeks outside. I thought it was all going right. But it would seem that sometimes the upgrade is either too soon or they physically miss the interaction, which, if that's the case, this is fantastic, because I would like him to be anything like my last iguana, where the kids could sit down with her, give her a good stroke and all that kind of stuff. She didn't particularly like being picked up. I only did ever really pick her up winter to make sure that she got back into her box at night, normally just only during the first couple of weeks. And then each night she would take herself away. But she was a fantastically tame lizard and loved the tension. And that's what I would really like with him. So, a little bit disappointed that I've had to bring him back in. It also means that, you know, this cage is realistically going to be a bit too small for him, and I do have other large indoor enclosures, but I have no space for them down here. And so that's in a room. One particular big one is in a room upstairs where I have a few quarantine fish tanks basically. But I don't want him up there because I've got no fish quarantining up there at the minute. It's hot over here. I would only ever even risk rescuing fish off other people this time of year. But I wouldn't go out and start buying fish. So the quarantine tanks are up there. They just run themselves. Every few days I go up, check water levels. I've got a big saltwater one, big freshwater one, and a couple there on standby, just running dry, or sat dry I should say. And so I don't want to put him up there. It's just not worth it. I think that the breakdown in trust will be too quick, and I think he'll suffer the same kind of thing as he did when he went outside. So part of the reason for this video is to tell you the next part of the plan. If I could get him outside tomorrow, I would do. Now in the video when I moved him outside, if you watch that video you'll have seen I tempted him in to allowing me to physically stroke him with my hand by hand feeding. I did that with Ziggy, and it worked really well. It was working really well with him, and I was practicing that on and off for quite a few weeks before I moved him outside. I wanted to make sure that we had enough trust that he would come to me, and still might bolt if I tried to get hold of him, but at least I know that he would come to me and give me a chance rather than trying to chase him around in that cage outside, which would have been stressful for him and for me, and it wouldn't have done us any good. So that was the way I moved him out. So I'm thinking now the next step is basically to carry on that relationship building, and once I can comfortably approach him without food and comfortably lift him out of his cage and interact with him that way, which could take a few days the way he's going, or it could take months. That's what I'll do. And at that stage I will remove the hide box from the outdoor cage, maybe put some extra trellis in up the sides to give him a little bit of extra cover, and at which point then I wouldn't just take him out and leave him out. We'd do going out in the afternoons when I come home from work, maybe staying out there just over the weekend. We've still got another 2 months of really, really, really good weather here. Hot, hot, hot. As you, I'm sorry, it's roasting in here even. So I've got time that he can still spend some time outside. Fortunately, you know, we've got the proper gear up here. At the minute I've just replaced his heater with an ordinary LED bulb just to brighten up the cage. But I can just replace that as things cool down if things don't work out the way I want to. So yeah, I just thought that it'd be worth noting that, you know, not all upgrades are fantastic for the animal. They don't always adapt very well to it, and sometimes you've got to be prepared to take a step back as well as you have to take a step forward. Some people would like to put things like the green iguana straight into their final home. I think that's a great idea, depending on where you are in the world, what your weather's like and all the rest of it. I would always expect a permanent home for my iguana out here in Spain to be an outdoor cage. Now I do have a big outdoor cage, but again it's upstairs where we just don't spend the time that we used to. It's not something I can just dismantle, it's something I need to rebuild again in the future, which would have been the next step for him. Personally, I quite like staging a green iguana up so that you can build that trust in a smaller space. They get more used to you passing. It's just an opinion and something that's worked for me. You know, a lot of people will state otherwise, and that's fine, I don't disagree, and if you can do it and you've got the right climate, awesome. But here we still get cold winters, and at this size I wouldn't leave him out ideally all winter without having a very well built heated box as the Ziggy did upstairs. So yeah, there it is. And another example is even sort of like the simplest. I mean, these guys are ferocious sometimes, and you know, they can take a bit of work, and before they get to be your best mate, you're going to take some hits from the tail, and if you're not careful, from the teeth. These guys look after themselves. But even like your most basic animal, reptiles that people keep, like your bearded dragons, fantastically tame animals, you still have to watch when you upgrade them, and you'll have to make adjustments. And things such as feeding make a big difference when you're upgrading cages. And what I did with bearded dragons in the past was I upgraded them from a decent cage to a 2 metre long cage. I fed them the normal mat crickets, they caught 3 or 4, all the others scurried off. Well, that's no good for them, no good for me. So what I had to do was feed them, rather than twice a day, feed them 4 or 5 times a day in small sittings. And the same went for him outdoors. Liz would message me, let me know what time he came out. We didn't put his heat pad on a timer to enforce that one of us had to go down. Normally Liz, after I'd left, because I leave quite early doors, she would go down, unplug his heat mat, then keep an eye on him for him coming out, make sure that he'd eaten enough, and let me know. And I'd message her, Liz would message me, I'd say, well, if he's not doing this, try this. And so we were like really on top of it after moving him out. And as I say, the first couple of weeks seemed to be going fantastic. But then things took a change, and too much time inside his hide box is completely pointless. So he's back indoors for now. As you can see, he's fat and healthy. I didn't really have to worry about him not eating for a couple of days whilst he was out there. But when you get to know your animal's habits and routines, it doesn't matter. You do worry when something changes like that. So that's personally what I've decided to do. And again, as you can see, he's happy as in here. He did rub his nose a little bit the first couple of weeks on his outdoor cage. I don't think the camera will pick it up. He's just got a light patch on the side of his face. But that's healing over fantastically. And it was only the first couple of weeks whilst he was really adventurous. So yeah, there you go. That's what happens. Sometimes you've got to be prepared, take that step back. If ever you do upgrade a reptile, remember to be doubly vigilant to what you would do normally. Lower the feed quantities, up the amounts of times that you feed them in a day. Make sure that they're venturing, make sure that they're basking, make sure that they're not spend too much time hiding. And if they are, then you know you either need to adjust the cage, or, as I say, take a step back. We will be making some adjustments to his cage, as I said. But I'm in no rush now. He's happy, and so I want to just work with him a little bit longer in here, unless, like I say, I'm picking him up tomorrow, in which case we're outdoors. So there you go. If you found any of this useful, like, subscribe, and if you know anybody else that's maybe thinking about getting green iguanas, or other videos on the channel showing this dude from when we got him 18 months ago, nearly 18 months. You can also see how fast he grows as well at this stage. Once they get like this, the size, it just explodes. So yeah, anyway, if you did or know anybody else, share it to them, let them know. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We've got a few fishing videos coming out, as well as something we do on our days out, like the 1 day a weekend where we're not running about doing all the animals and working and all the rest of it. So check them out, and that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. See you soon.